Hey Shark fans, it's Melinda Marsalis. Welcome to Heard It on the Shark. I'll be your show host, and Mississippi Hills National Heritage Area is your show sponsor. Heard It on the Shark is a weekly interview show that airs every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on the Shark 102.3 FM radio station based in Ripley, Mississippi. Then it's released as a podcast on all the major podcast platforms. You'll hear interviews with the movers and shakers in North Mississippi who are making things happen. I'll talk to entrepreneurs, leaders of business, medicine, education, and the people behind all the amazing things happening in North Mississippi. When people ask you, how did you know about that? You'll say, I heard it on the Shark. Heard It on the Shark is brought to you by the Mississippi Hills National Heritage Area. We want you to get out and discover the historic, cultural, natural, scenic, and recreational treasures of the Mississippi Hills that are right in your backyard. And of course, we want you to take the Shark 102.3 FM along for the ride. Musical credit belongs to Hill Country Blues guitar legend Gary Burnside and the late great Buddy Grisham, playing Long Way Home from their album Acoustic Brothers, which was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
This program was recorded at Sun Bear Studio in Ripley, Mississippi.
Hey Shark fans, it's Melinda with another episode of Heard It on the Shark. And today in Sun Bear Studio, I have Mr. Benjamin Wilkerson, who is an attorney for the Mississippi Taxpayer Assistance Project. His office is in Oxford. So Ben, thanks for driving up today.
Thank you, Melinda. Happy to be here.
Ben, I got to say that this is a brand new topic for me because until your intern reached out to me and asked the Shark to do a public service announcement for something you guys were doing, I had never heard of you. So I'm really glad to be able to send on out to our Shark fans all the information that I have learned about your office.
Thank you. Yes, we are a low-income tax clinic. We operate out of Oxford, Mississippi. I work under North Mississippi Rural Legal Services. What we do is assist people who have tax controversies or disputes with the Internal Revenue Service. So these are people who either owe the IRS money or maybe they are being audited by the IRS. They've filed a recent tax return and the IRS is questioning credits or some other information on the return and they have a problem with it. And oftentimes that will lead to receiving notices. And when people receive those notices, they can reach out to us and we can assist them with that. For
a lower price, is it expensive to do this?
All of our services are free of charge.
Absolutely free. So you can reach out. If you are having IRS problems, then you can reach out to you guys and you'll help for free.
Yes, no fees, no charges. It's completely risk-free. So, hopefully we can help you. But if for some reason we cannot help you, you haven't lost anything.
I'm telling you, that is so awesome to know. I did not have any idea that was out there. So what is the most common controversy that you hear?
I'd say the most common situation is people who are claiming dependents, oftentimes it's their own children, but other situations where it's grandparents claiming their grandchildren as dependents or aunts and uncles claiming nieces and nephews. All of those situations are allowable under the IRS rules, but the IRS will often question these people and make them basically prove that they're entitled to claim those dependents. And then once under those dependents, there often fall these credits, which can often be very valuable: earned income credit, child tax credit. Those can be very beneficial to families who are, trying to get by. And oftentimes people will file returns. They expect, fairly sizable refunds, but those refunds will be held up by the IRS while they investigate the taxpayer's eligibility for those credits. And so what we do is try to help people prove the eligibility so that we can get that money in their pocket.
If a set of parents are divorced, you've got a mama and a daddy, and they each claim a child on their tax return, does the IRS give the tax return to one or the other and then they can just figure it out, or does it hold the whole process up if one child gets claimed by two people?
With the IRS, you never really know how that's going to go. It can go different ways, but usually, unfortunately, the first person to file the return to claim the child is usually the one who's going to be sort of at the advantage. If you try to file a return with a child's Social Security number and that child has already been claimed on a previous return from that year, that return's going to get rejected. So you're not even going to be able to at least electronically file it. You'd then have to mail it in, a paper return. And then at that point, the IRS is going to try to sort out, which person is actually allowed to claim the child.
That absolutely makes sense because the first person to claim, there's no other claim against it. So, of course, they are going to assume that's where it goes. But then along comes another claim, and then there comes the problem.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So if you find yourself in that situation where you dispute the who got tax credit for a child or some children, then they can come to you.
Yes, they can come to us. I encourage you to address these things as soon as possible. Dealing with the IRS can be intimidating. I think sometimes people have a tendency, they'll get something that they see is from the IRS and they just either won't open it at all, or they'll look at it, but then just try to, put it off, put it away somewhere. Oftentimes, these notices have pivotal deadlines. So it's just key to, if you're dealing with something, go ahead and face it head on. People like me are here to help you. So you can, reach out to us, and we've seen most of this stuff before. So, it's oftentimes not as bad as you probably make it out to be in your head, but it can be bad if you miss deadlines. We get sometimes where, maybe the person correctly claimed a dependent, but time has lapsed during which they had the right to appeal that, the IRS decision, and they don't catch us in time, and then there's nothing we can really do. But as long as you're, out in front, there's avenues to address these things.
Ben, we need to put it in our calendars for you to come back in March so that when this is fresh on everybody's minds that we can say it again.
Yes,
to catch
happy to do so.
Yeah. Okay, what else besides earned income credit?
So we also deal with a lot of collections issues. These are situations where people owe the IRS money, and there are various options to deal with that. There is currently not collectible status, where if you're unable to pay and you can show and satisfy the IRS that you're unable to pay, they will basically agree to that and back off and agree that they're not going to engage in collection action against you. You can also submit an offer in compromise, where you try to submit an offer of a smaller amount to settle a bigger amount. That's usually what you see referenced on, TV or radio ads, where they say, you can settle your tax debt for pennies on the dollar. That's referring to an offer in compromise. You can also set up installment agreements where you make a monthly payment to ultimately pay off the full balance. Unfortunately, a lot of our clients don't really have the means to do that. So we're usually doing the prior two options, the offer and compromise or the currently not collectible status.
Yeah, as an older person with adult children, the very first year that you ever have to file your taxes without that child credit, it's a shocker.
Yes.
You go from getting money back to owing money for the very first time, and you have to kind of back up and punt and figure it out. It's not easy. And so if you are just barely getting by and then you get hit with that $2,000 or $4,000 bill to the IRS, it's very scary.
Yes. None of our clients, and I feel like most people in general, are not equipped to just cut a check to the IRS when they come calling. So that's why you have to kind of look at your other options and see, what else you can do, because it can be a little scary, and the IRS does not have a good reputation. And, like I said earlier, people can be kind of intimidated and, they don't really want to deal with it. But the best thing to do is to just, address it, because as I said earlier, it's often not quite as scary as you might think.
I like what you told me before the interview, that your grant funding comes initially from the IRS because it is advantageous for them to give people like me an advocate to help me get it right with the IRS, because that's what they want. We all want everybody to pay what they ought to pay, and you're going to help us do that.
Yes, and most people might be surprised to hear it, but the IRS, generally speaking, is fair. If you can present, a reasonable, solid argument, they'll usually come along with it. But the important thing is just that you you deal with it and you address it.
Okay, so if our shark fans out there listen, if they have any of these problems or they foresee that maybe next year when they file their taxes, this might come up, how can they reach out to you?
So we get most of our cases through our phone line. The number is 1-888-808-8049. Usually you're going to leave a voicemail, but we have people checking that voicemail, every other day or so at least. So we'll get back to you pretty quickly. You can also reach me by email. Email is bwilkerson@nmrls.com. You can find that on our website, nmrls.com.
Ben, tell everybody about your big staff that you have back at your office.
Well, I am the only attorney that works on the tax clinic side of things. I have a part-time assistant who's a law student. We try to get some interns in, but I'm mostly a one-man show. I cover the entire state of Mississippi. So if you know somebody in Jackson or Biloxi or anywhere in between, we can assist them too. It's not just local to Oxford or Ripley.
Okay, spread the word, shark fans, because this could help somebody out. Ben, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about the Mississippi Taxpayer Assistance Project. You guys are always, don't worry if you didn't get one of those numbers or the website that he read out. I'll put them in the show notes. And if you're listening to this on the radio, you just go to shark1023.com, click on the podcast tab, and you'll find it in the show notes. So don't worry about getting those written down. I have them written down for you. Ben, thanks so much for coming up from Oxford to tell us about this.
Thank you so much for having me. Just trying to spread the word out there.
I'll see you in March, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, Shark fans, that's it for this edition of Heard It on the Shark. Tune in every Tuesday at 11 a.m. to find out what's happening with our local community leaders. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for an interview, or if you want access to this interview, you can go to our website, shark1023.com, and click on the podcast tab. Keep it tuned to the Shark 1023 and have a great rest of the day.
The Mississippi Hills National Heritage Area was established by the United States Congress in 2009 and represents a distinctive cultural landscape shaped by the dynamic intersection of Appalachian and Delta cultures. This intersection has produced a powerful concentration of nationally significant cultural icons, including King of Rock and Roll Elvis Presley, First Lady of Country Music Tammy Wynette, blues legend Howlin' Wolf, civil rights icons Ida B. Wells Barnett and James Meredith, America's favorite playwright Tennessee Williams, and Nobel laureate William Faulkner. The stories of the Mississippi Hills are many and powerful, from music and literature to Native American and African American heritage to the Civil War. The Mississippi Hills National Heritage Area supports the local institutions that preserve and share Northeast Mississippi's rich heritage. Begin your discovery of the historic, cultural, natural, scenic, and recreational treasures of our region by visiting the Mississippi Hills National Heritage Area online at MississippiHills.org.
This show is made possible by JC Media, LLC in Ripley, Mississippi. JC Media owns the Shark 102.3 Classic Rock FM radio station where the show is hosted, and Sun Bear Recording Studio where the interviews are recorded. We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That email is theshark1023@gmail.com. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite app or stream episodes online at shark1023.com/podcasts. Today's episode was produced by Melinda Marsalis. It was edited by Rick Williams and engineered by Chris Marsalis. The podcast technician is Joyce Grady.